Hello and welcome. My name is Beverly Popek and I'm a Supervising Compliance Officer at the Office of Labor Standards Enforcement at the City and County of San Francisco. Today's presentation is going to be on lactation accommodation in the workplace. I'm going to give you the requirements regarding compliance, your options, best practices, answers to frequently asked questions, and we'll conclude this presentation with a quick website tour. So let's get started. So the purpose of this ordinance is to provide a supportive work environment to enable employees who are nursing mothers to breastfeed or express breast milk during work hours. San Francisco has done this by complementing existing state and federal laws by amending the San Francisco Building Code and the police codes. So who's covered under this law? For covered employers, all employers except for government entities that have employees working in San Francisco are covered. In terms of employees, all employees working within the geographic boundaries of San Francisco, including part-time employees, are covered. Please note that on this slide, San Francisco is underlined and there's an asterisk. Federal enclaves and the San Francisco International Airport are not considered San Francisco. I think the airport is self-explanatory, but federal enclaves are pieces of land, property, places where the federal government occupy within San Francisco. If you're an employer in these places, such as the federal enclaves or the San Francisco International Airport, you'll have to look to federal law if you're in federal enclaves, or for the San Francisco International Airport, state law and the airport to get advice on the lactation requirements where you reside. So let's take a look at the employer requirements, lactation breaks. You must provide a reasonable amount of break time for employees to express breast milk. And a reasonable amount of time may vary from employee to employee, and even for that particular employee, when that person figures it out, it may change. So it's best to have an interactive conversation to understand what is a reasonable amount of time and when should these breaks occur. Now, break times, if possible, can run concurrently with any break time that you're already providing the employee. But in cases when this is not possible, it doesn't have to run concurrently, and it's authorized under state law that the rest time may be unpaid. Whatever it is, you should discuss this with your employee, and you should write down whatever is decided and you're going to try. The employee is going to try to make this work, and they are responsible to let you know if any changes need to be made. So make notes, and certainly you can always modify and try to accommodate the lactation breaks. Now, let's turn our attention to lactation location. You need to provide a location for lactation, and it can't be a bathroom. It needs to be in close proximity to the employee's work area that meets the following criteria. So it needs to be shielded from view and free from intrusion. Has to be clean and safe, contains a surface, a place to sit, has access to electricity, and is not a bathroom. Some of the comments I would say for this particular slide is that a place to sit is a requirement, but the more comfortable seating you can provide, the more effective and easier it would be to lactate for the person. Having access to electricity means that you don't necessarily have to have an outlet in the room or the location. You can have perhaps a long extension cord that has access to electricity. So as you could see, we want you to be as accommodating as possible. Think outside of the box. So if you have any questions regarding the criteria, feel free to contact our office and we're happy to work with you. More about the location. If you are in a multi-tenant building, you can meet the requirement by using a shared location if there is one, or you can get together and create a shared location. In addition, you must provide in close proximity to the employee's work area access to refrigerator, and sink with running water. I want to clarify that the lactation location where lactation is happening does not have to have the refrigerator and sink with running water also in that room or location. It can be separate. But as you can see, it is mentioned that the law requires all of these items to be in close proximity to the employee's work area. So let's look at the definition of what is close proximity. It depends on the specifics of the situation, but it must be close enough that the location does not deter a reasonable employee from using it. Now, you need to have a lactation accommodation policy. It is a requirement of the law, and the first part of the policy, it must identify the process by which an employee may submit a request. Should they send an email? Do you have a request form? We do have sample request forms that you can use on our website. Stay tuned. I will give a website tour at the conclusion of this presentation, and you could see where that is. Number 2, you must respond within 5 days of the request. So once an employee makes a request, within 5 business days, you need to respond, and that response should be in writing. If you would like to say something verbally, that is terrific, but always back it up with something in writing so it documents the process to show that you were responsive within 5 business days. Number 3, you must engage in an interactive process with the employee to determine the appropriate lactation break or breaks, as well as the location. Understand that the employee may not know and understand much about lactation, so this is all new to them as well. And be patient, understand what they need and perhaps what they are looking for, and see what you can accommodate. This information that we're providing are the bare minimum requirements of this law, but if there's anything you can do above and beyond, that is always allowed to be more generous. Now, you can deny the request, but if you deny their request, you must provide the employee with a written response that identifies the basis upon which you have denied the request. So here are some exemptions that you can possibly use to deny a request, and that's available under the law. You may establish an exemption from the requirement to provide perhaps a lactation break and or a lactation space. But if there are such exemptions that may exist for you under this local San Francisco law, it may not be available under state law. And nevertheless, bottom line is that you as an employer must still have to comply with all other requirements, aspects of the ordinance, the local ordinance, as well as any state and federal legal requirements. So if just because you might have an exemption, that doesn't mean that particular exemption may exempt you or not allow you to comply with the entire law. Undue hardship is an exemption under the local ordinance. And what that is that if providing lactation accommodation is a significant expense or some sort of operational difficulty when you consider in relation to the size, financial resources, or nature of your business, it is an undue hardship, then that is perhaps an exemption that you can qualify for. Some examples of undue hardship could be in some circumstances, perhaps if you have to build a room, take on a construction project, remove seating from a restaurant, if you have a restaurant, or removing retail floor space if you have a shop or a store. Best practices. Learn about lactation. If you don't know anything about lactation, learn a little bit about it before you create a policy and, of course, engage in this interactive process with your employee about the lactation accommodation. That will give you a background, and I think it would facilitate a more smoother process to communicate with the employee. Second, you need to have that lactation accommodation policy. It is required under this law, but the best practice is just to do it. A lot of times employers may do a lot of research and never get around to creating or having that policy. 3, use sample policies to make your own. We have a sample policy that you can use, and please make it your own. And we're happy to provide feedback. If you'd like, just contact us and let us know. 4, there are resources, more resources available to you. We do have the rules and regulations on our website, and this can provide a better understanding to all of the hypothetical situations and more of the nuances and details of this law. So that's a good document to review, as well as the last item on this list. Read the frequently asked questions document on our website. Now, there's a double asterisk here because in this presentation, we are going to go through some answers to frequently asked questions, but we will not be going through the entire document that you can find on our website. Continuing on with some best practices, once you have a policy, and make sure it's compliant, and we can help with that. So contact our office, we can review it and give you a heads up. Yeah, it's in compliance with the law, or no, you might want to change this because it's unclear, or certainly this part of the policy is not compliant. Once you have a compliant policy, you need to distribute it. The best time to do it is at the time of hire, but if you're watching this video now, you don't have a policy, certainly you have to make a policy, create the policy, and if you have existing employees, you have employees already, you need to issue a memo with a copy of the policy to current employees. You can do all of the above, and certainly put your policy in your handbook and make it part of your company policy. Retaining records is very important. Once you get a request, you should retain a copy of the request, as well as any correspondence notes that show the timing of when you responded. The 5 business days is key, so that is the maximum amount of time allowed. So as soon as possible is always the best, but certainly retaining those records are key if there are any questions and if we have to investigate. How long should you keep the records? You need to keep records 3 years from the date of the request. And the last piece of item, I think I said this before, the Office of Labor Standards Enforcement is here for you to understand your requirements as well as your options. So if there's anything here that you need information or you have more questions or you'd like us to review, feel free to contact us. Now moving on to our frequently asked questions section of this presentation. As mentioned before, we have a frequently asked questions document on our website. It's very robust. Today, we're going to review some answers to questions that I think would be best for this presentation. But certainly, there are more questions and answers on our website if you'd like to review this more. So question number 1. Are employees at the San Francisco International Airport covered by the ordinance? So the answer is no. The city and county of San Francisco owns the property in which we have created an airport, and it's called the San Francisco International Airport, SFO. However, this land, this property, is not located in the geographical boundaries or within the city and county of San Francisco. It's actually located in San Bruno, which is in San Mateo County. Anyway, what that means is that if you are at the airport, operating at the airport, you do not have to comply with this local ordinance. So please note that there are laws that you have to comply with that has to do with lactation. So you need to review that, research it, and state law provides similar protections to workers at the airport. Question 2, Are employers required to provide breaks for lactation? Yes, the answer is yes. You have to provide breaks, and it has to be a reasonable amount of time for an employee to express breast milk. What that reasonable amount of time will vary from employee to employee and may change. So please engage in that interactive process to understand what your employee needs and to make it most effective. Now, if you'd like some more information about an answer to this question, you can see our rules and regulations, Rule 1, for more information, which is found on our website. Question 2, what is a lactation break? A lactation break is the break time an employee needs to express breast milk, which includes but is not limited to pumping, breastfeeding, and hand expressing. An employer is required to provide an employee with this time. Question 4, are employers required to pay for lactation breaks? The answer is no. The lactation break should be provided during an employee's existing paid breaks if possible. Sometimes this is not possible, and this is why having that interactive conversation and discussion with the employee to set everything up is very important so that you as well as the employee understands if the break is going to be paid or unpaid. If there needs to be a lactation break scheduled or done when it is not during an existing paid break, then under state law, the time does not have to be paid. Question 5, will a bathroom satisfy an employee's requirement to provide a location for lactation? The answer is no. The lactation space cannot be a bathroom. Question 6, can the lactation space be the employee's normal work area? The answer is yes, if that normal work area can meet the requirements of the ordinance. So for example, if an employee has a private office with a door, and if there are windows, maybe the windows just need window covering so there's privacy. The door needs to be locked, or maybe a sign put on the door so there's no intrusions. There are ways to modify or make this accommodation and make it work. But overall, the lactation space does not have to be a separate space from the employee's normal work area. So you don't need to have it separate. And with that said, your lactation space does not always have to just be there vacant if you do not have an employee who is lactating and needing this accommodation. So more on this in question 7. Can the lactation space be used for other purposes? And the answer is yes. You can have a room, designate a room where it is a lactation space, but it can also be used for other purposes. So for example, meetings or something like that. But the rule is that you need to have the primary function for that room designated as a lactation space during the duration of an employee's need for as long as that person needs to lactate. Now, you are usually going to work out and have some sort of schedule of lactation breaks, so you can publicly give this information of when the room is going to be available and when the room is certainly not available and is being used as a lactation space. If the space is going to be multi-use like this, there should be some sort of signage that the person can use, that if the room is in use, that sign can be on the door so there will not be any intrusions, and certainly give prior notice to other employees so that other employees understand that the room is not available for perhaps other purposes or meetings, and that the lactation location is being used as lactation space. Question 8, Must all employers have a policy regarding lactation accommodation? The answer is yes. Under the law, you must develop and implement a policy regarding lactation accommodation. And when I say implement, I mean you need to distribute it, you need to give it out, you need to certainly make sure that everyone knows that there is a policy. And that is regardless of whether or not people are asking about it or you think or not think people are pregnant or lactating. Question 9. Where can I find a sample accommodation policy? The answer is we have two different places. The first one is on our website, and the second one is at the Department of Public Health. They also have a sample accommodation policy that you can use to make your own. Question 10. When must an employer distribute its lactation accommodation policy to its employees? So this is related to another question and answer that we went through. The best time is, of course, during an employee's time of hire, when they're new. You give them all of your policies, including this one about lactation accommodation. You also have to make this policy available and offer, you have to offer and give a copy of the policy to the employee who inquires or requests information about pregnancy or parental leave. Now, if you already have employees and you don't have a policy and you need to make a policy, of course, once you create the policy, you need to distribute the policy to your existing employees that are already working for you. Put the policy and information into your handbook and make it available so that it is transparent that you have such a policy. Question 11. What records must an employer retain to comply with the ordinance? The answer is that you need to maintain a record of the request for the lactation accommodation and any updates to the initial request, including name, date of the request, and the resolution. Dates, times, people, even notes from verbal conversations is very, very helpful if we have any questions. So please think about this. The more information you keep, the better. And these informations that you keep, the records, they do not have to be hard copy. They can be in the cloud. So feel free to do that if space is of concern to you. And if there's any sort of communication to the employee, please make sure you have a copy of that. Question 12. How long must employers retain the required records? The answer is you must keep the required documentation for at least 3 years from the date of the request, and you need to allow OLSC access to such records. Now let's take a look at the website. Our website has a lot of information and resources for you. This is a screenshot of the top half of the Lactation in the Workplace webpage. Arrow number 1 points to the overview section. It gives a quick summary of what this ordinance is all about, which defines the minimum standards for lactation accommodation. And in red, it gives you how to contact us, either by phone or by email. Arrow number 2 is the statutory authority section. There are 3 documents here. The first one is a copy of the San Francisco Police Code, which is the Lactation in the Workplace Ordinance, what we've been talking about. And the second bullet point or the second link is a text of the legislation for the Police and Building Code, which accompanies all of this. The third link are the rules and regulations that I mentioned earlier in this presentation regarding more specifics and details about the accommodation process and minimum standards for this particular law. This is a screenshot of the second half of, or the bottom half of the website. Arrow number 1 points to the forms and documents section. The first link that we have here is our frequently asked questions document. If you went through the frequently asked questions in this presentation, I already mentioned this, but we did not go through everything that is in this document that you'll find on our website. So feel free to download this, print it out, review it. And certainly if you have questions, contact us and we will review it with you. The next two links or documents that are listed here are sample documents for you in multiple languages. We have the sample lactation accommodation policy, as well as a sample lactation accommodation request form in English, Spanish, Chinese, and Filipino. These are in formats where you can modify and make it your own. The last link is a guide for employees and employers regarding lactation in the workplace, and this is also available in various languages. The second arrow is our resource section, and this is above and beyond to help you understand more about lactation in the workplace, and we have two good resources for you. The first one is through the San Francisco Department of Public Health, which has the Workplace Lactation Accommodation Program. And the second resource is through the U.S. Department of Labor that has great information about break time for nursing mothers. The third arrow points to the contact us section. Again, we have listed our direct email address, which is lactation@sfgov.org, and our phone number, the 415-554-6406. Contact us with any questions regarding your requirements and responsibilities and options under the Lactation Accommodations Ordinance. And finally, at the very bottom of the Contact Us section, we have a link to sign up for our email updates. So by joining the OLSC email list, you're going to receive periodic updates about our citywide labor laws. That concludes our presentation of lactation in the workplace. This final slide is a summary contact information of our website, our phone number, and our direct email address. Please feel free to contact us if you have any questions. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. And if there's anything else we can do, please let us know. Thank you again and have a great day.